I did have knowledge about it, but I think it's denial. And so maybe I had to go through it to like experience it first.
Yeah.
People give you good advice and people don't take it on board until you hit a roadblock yourself and then you're like, oh, okay.
Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to S3E07 podcast where we aim to build a better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, and this week on mindset and relationship, all that good stuff, we are going to discuss, do we think burnout is on the rise?
Yeah, I actually personally feel like burnout is on a rise. Just with the whole generation nowadays, the young bucks are very focused on career growth and their drive for career is quite significant.
Yeah, definitely on the rise. And even statistically, it said about 55% of people are feeling that in their jobs, the roles and the expectations are actually more demanding and actually more intense.
Yeah, and that is true because when you actually look at job descriptions like on Seek or LinkedIn or things like that, there's two main bold lines that they put in there. It's capable of working in a high-paced environment / high intense working environment.
Yeah, I also see that. And another thing that I saw online is that actually 3 out of 5 people feel exhausted after a day of work, which I personally can resonate with. I've felt this many times. And it's not about those moments where you're like, oh my God, that was such a long day. But it's really like you come home and you just plonk on the couch and you just, no matter how hard you struggle to peel yourself off the couch, you're like, okay, I should go cook or I should go do something. You just can't seem to get yourself off the couch.
Yeah. Well, that seems like a sticky situation for you, buddy.
Very sticky. But anyways, it's not about us. We are actually sharing a very interesting story and journey from a friend of ours, Roxy, who we have here. And she's going to share her story, her journey, and her learnings about burnout and stress. So welcome, Roxy.
Welcome,
Thank
Roxy.
you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. Did you want to share to our listeners just a little bit about yourself and also like how you ended up where you are now?
Yeah, I'd love to. Hi, everyone. I started on my journey in yoga probably about 10 years ago after burnout. I'd actually been practicing yoga for over 20 years, like since
Wow.
after high school. And but I didn't really get into it until burnout became an issue. So since then I have used yoga as a way to reset and use the tools from it. Yeah, took a break from advertising. I was working in advertising and it was quite hectic, long hours and quite demanding. Yeah, so I left the industry for a while and then basically focused on health and came back, started working part-time in marketing and pursuing yoga teaching as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like you sometimes just need that break as much as you feel like you should work through it, but you sometimes just need that time for yourself to just rejuvenate and take a step back.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even if you don't consciously do it, sometimes your body and brain will tell you.
Shut down.
Yeah, basically shut down.
Yeah.
It'll be like you need.
Yeah. We wanted to really bring you on to be a part of the conversation because you were a part of a magazine coverage article in PNG where you basically covered things of burnout. Specifically just having like no work-life balance, just the time that you're doing your main job, you were obviously suffering through that whole burnout stress. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
I think, when you graduate from uni and you have like your green after uni, like, oh yeah, I want to build my career. I want to do this. I want to travel. And I was very much in that stage, like in my 20s and like building my career. And joining advertising because I had studied strategic advertising as well. It was my dream job and everything. And when you're in your 20s, it's exciting having the perks that come with, working in corporates and, Friday nights drinks. These are very fun and you get a bit of perks. And so what was exciting in my 20s is perhaps not as exciting now I'm 40, my 30s and now I'm 40. So, yeah, it was very much like work hard, play hard. And, that's fine for a short period of time, but it's not really sustainable. So I did find myself getting to a point experiencing fatigue and inability to like concentrate. And usually I'd be fairly like buttoned down. But yeah, just reached a point where life was pretty hectic. I thought I was fine. I said, you need to take a break and rest, but kind of thought, no, I'm fine. That, other people get stressed and need breaks and burn out. Probably lack of awareness as well. And it was only when I wasn't able to like get out of bed one day. And so, my body was like, no, you need to rest and just not being aware of the like signs and symptoms of stress, burnout, which could sometimes lead to like depression, anxiety. And so it was at that point I had to call it a day in Canada because I was over in Canada at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, I was working for an awesome advertising agency, but I just didn't have that work-life balance and just tired. And then, you get to a point, when you're overtired and you're just crying all the time.
Yeah.
And
like everything just triggers you.
Yeah. Someone looks at you going,
You're like, what's wrong?
Yeah. So I was at that point and, my manager at the time said, Roxy, you seem really burnt out. I think you need to take rest. But I'm like, no, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. And then it was only like a year later when I had relocated back to Oz that it came up again when I had seen my doctor here who said, you're depressed and need to like go on a mental health plan and then start that journey again. And that was a real moment because then I thought back to a year ago when my manager at the time had flagged what she was concerned about. But I was like, no, a bit of denial and lack of awareness about the signs and symptoms of depression, anxiety, burnout.
Yeah. So were you just seeing a doctor because of a reason, or was it just like a regular checkup thing and then they found out, or?
Yeah, more of like a checkup. I was feeling tired all the time, like tired and then like sleeping a lot. But that's a result of like mentally not being well. And then that shows up physically and then, feeling anxious with like shallow breathing, those sorts of things, not able to sleep. So I got to that point and I was like, oh, geez, I need to get help.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I went to a doctor here. You can get mental health plans with your local GP. But I remember chatting with the doctor and he said, oh, yeah, a lot of young people go through this because I was only 30 at the time. Yeah, so about 10 years ago.
Did they say why younger people go through this a lot, or is it just because they're just trying to push through or like not really knowing what they're feeling? Or
he didn't elaborate on it, but, what you were referring to earlier about building and building and building, at the cost of your health.
So as well as that, were there any other things that you noticed while you were working apart from like the tiredness and the sleeping that were like others showing you that you were starting to burn out at the time, like when you're working?
Yeah, I was just working crazy hours like over weekends and getting triggered, upset a lot. And then also inability to like concentrate and focus and also a lack of joy. So I guess usually I'd be excited to see friends and hang out and, engaged in conversations.
Even outside of work.
Yeah, I just felt really sad, you just have this like blanket sadness, sometimes like carries you.
And do you feel a bit
around.
Confused too? You're like, why don't I feel happy hanging out with friends?
Yeah, everything. Yeah, because like, I was physically healthy, good job and living abroad, which is something I always wanted to do. I'm like, what's wrong? I don't know how to shake this feeling. Yeah, so I did move from Canada to Melbourne at the time. I thought, I'll reset here and start again. That didn't work because then I didn't have anyone from Canada or Brisbane or PNG. So I didn't have a social network there for support for a couple of months. So I didn't settle in Melbourne. I had dreams that I'd settle in Melbourne. And I went up to PNG for a little while and that was good to see family. But it's also a bit hard because there's a lack of understanding about depression, anxiety and culturally people are like, oh, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You're fine. Stop sleeping all the time. Or, people are frustrated as well. And I don't know why I'm sleeping all the time. And so that's when I came back to Brisbane and then saw the doctor more about like, I'm tired all the time. I don't know what's wrong with me. But now it's like clear. But at the time, like you're saying, it's confusing when you're in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. I want to put it out there for us to discuss, but what is the difference between job burnout as opposed to actually work stress?
Yeah, in your opinion.
Yeah, in our own opinions.
Yeah. Burnout, I think, just have no energy. And like with work stress, I think that, you'll go up and down and say you're stressed preparing for a meeting, for example. Like I got to engage these stakeholders or prepare this report and get ready for it. So that there's that element of stress to deliver. And stress isn't bad, I don't think.
Yeah, that's like a natural good and bad stress.
Yeah, there's good and bad stress. With your roles as well, you have KPIs, and you're paid to deliver. So that that's important to remember, and also just managing that stress so that it doesn't overwhelm you. And I guess work stress is that yes, there are ups and downs, but then say you're stressed leading up to a meeting, you deliver it, your stress levels would hopefully go back down after, where there's that like natural ebb and flow. But I think burnout is when the stress overwhelms you and you get to this point where you don't want to work or you don't want to, like you don't find joy in what you did previously or don't find the work engaging. Yeah, so that's how I would differentiate between work stress, which is a natural part of any role. People have things that they like and that they don't like with any job that you do. Mm-hmm. And for example, reporting, I don't necessarily like reporting, but I do. I need to do reporting as part of my role.
I would have something quite similar, and I also think like work stress is like one temporary and it's also quite short term. Like you say, you have a campaign coming up and you're just working a little bit over hours or maybe researching a lot and doing many different tasks at the same time. That's like work stress. But job burnout, I would think it's a lead up from all that stress that you haven't been coping with and it leads to a burnout. And I would like to put an analogy. It's kind of like when you're driving a car and you're just pressing on the accelerator and that rev meter goes all the way up. That's like the stress. Like it could go back down like once you step off that accelerator. But if you keep accelerating and keep hitting that red, like what's it called, the rev meter, the car and the engine itself might blow up eventually. It just burn and literally burn out. So I think that's kind of how I would explain work stress versus burnout.
Mm-hmm. It's something similar in the fact of it's like a hamster wheel. Sometimes when we're in a high-paced environment where we're working towards KPIs, your targets and things like that, you're a hamster on a hamster wheel. You're constantly running, and sometimes you need to take yourself off that wheel to realize what type of environment that you put yourself in. Mm-hmm. And what you explained before, Roxy, in terms of the difference between stress as opposed to the burnout, that's exactly how I would explain it. In the fact of burnout is very much like you just don't enjoy it anymore. You just don't want to go back there and do it again, or even just puts you off in the industry. So, I mean, that sort of clear difference that you mentioned before is exactly how I would put it.
Yeah. But I wanted to also add an extra question is, what's the difference between burnout and also being lazy? And the reason why I ask this is sometimes like with yourself, you're like, am I being lazy or am I being burnt out? So it's like my question is, how do you differentiate either with yourself or even someone? What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, that's great, because then that also raises other points, because I was reading about laziness and procrastination, which sometimes is a result of
burnout as well.
Burnout and also trauma, like someone's trauma response.
Yep.
True.
So that's really interesting, because someone may want to do something, but sometimes people self-sabotage as well.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole other
another
layer
tree
as well.
branch of
conversation. Like because trauma sometimes it can have an impact on people in different ways and how they show up. There's laziness, and it's like, why don't people take action to do something? And there is like a mental barrier. And some people, some people are lazy and like, I don't want to, I'm not compelled enough. It's not meaningful enough for me to take action on something. And then for some people, they do really want to, but there is a block in there as well. And so trauma as well.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's like that couch explanation I was saying. Like you come home, you plonk on the couch because you're just so tired from the day. Yeah. And you're like, okay, I really need to cook dinner, or I really need to clean, or whatever. And you just can't peel yourself off the couch. And like from a third person's perspective, they're like, oh, that person's so lazy. They never clean, they never cook. But it's just like behind that, it's that trauma of like, you just don't have that energy to do anything anymore. Yeah. So that's the burnout. So yeah, that's a really good explanation between like sometimes there's different types of lazy as well and reasons behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes people are just physically buggered as well. It's like, I can't, you know. And particularly today when we see, a lot of information like that is quite hectic and overwhelming for people. Conflict in the world, and sometimes people don't have the resources or self-knowledge to self-manage and self-soothe. So it may be a case of, if I watch TV for hours, that's going to help me feel better, or comedy, or doing that. And then it also does take another level to come in and like break that habit as well.
Yeah.
Which is where, these podcasts are great because it brings awareness to all of this, but it does take a lot of work as well, because I've, touched on like a few things. You think I'm just chilling on the couch, but then there's so many different influencing factors.
Yeah, you really have to like understand yourself and the reasons of why you're feeling that. Let's say like the initial thought might be like, oh, I'm lazy, but it's like, why am I lazy? Or like, why don't I feel like getting up? Why don't I want to do this? And if it's really just like, I can't be bothered, then you're lazy. But if it's just like, I don't want to, I just don't have the energy and I've just done so much, I just want to rest, and that's like another reason. And I feel like there's a whole level of just self-awareness, self-understanding to understand like what is triggering that laziness.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to self-reflect, just to self-reflect on your situation at that point in time, because obviously procrastination as opposed to being lazy, it technically is two separate things, but it leads to each other in some way. If you're consistently feeling a certain way, i.e. if you're lazy, you just don't want to do it, then there's probably a reason to why it's leading to that.
Yeah.
But if you're able to self-reflect, then maybe you'll be able to identify, well, am I just procrastinating just to recharge my battery just for that short term period? Or am I actually lazy in the fact where I don't enjoy doing this? And like you said, Roxy, it's not something that is enough for me to really chase and get done at that point in time. So I think, being able to self-reflect can have a pretty big impact there.
Yeah, and there's also being honest with yourself. I think there's a level of that too, because if you're not being honest with yourself, you might not find answers either.
I also wanted to share this, what I learned at yoga teacher training as well, about time and how time has masculine energy behind it, like day and night, or being productive can also be influenced by if you're a woman and if you have your period or not. And a male will approach time and rest differently to how women do.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So
really cool.
Within a woman's or her menstrual cycle, like leading up to her period until winter, where the woman, or what's before winter?
Autumn.
Yeah, autumn, where she's, the leaves start to fall off the trees, and so she's starting to, like, energy that will go down. And then during her period is like the winter, where a woman will rest. And then there is spring, where after her period, she'll start to feel better. And then summer is like her ovulation. So a woman's productivity will be influenced.
Yeah, I've heard about that. The different phases.
Yeah. So sometimes that can also influence at the end of the day when you're coming home, if you can't peel yourself off the couch. And so everyone has their own unique rhythm and cycle, and can influence if someone is like taking rest or procrastinating, or it's a bit harder to do something. And being in tune with your own cycle, like everyone's different with how they respond, like their own natural rhythm and cycle can help with burnout as well, in terms of having energy. So, that was an interesting learning.
Yeah, well, I think it's also interesting that you said time is masculine too. Yeah. That's really, really interesting.
Yeah. Also, this energy as well with going after your goals, which is very important, but that has like masculine energy behind it, which is good, but also finding that balance, because if there is too much, then you burn out.
Would masculine energy be something more like a very action movement, do you think?
Yeah.
And then like maybe feminine, it's more like nurturing, like self-care. Is that kind of what it is? I'm just trying to understand the both.
One way is like day and night. So I teach yin yoga, and yin is likened to like rest. And so there are slower poses where we hold the poses for like 3 minutes and it's slow. And
Wow,
more
3
like
minutes.
A nighttime.
Yeah, that's crazy. 3 minutes.
But they're really like chill poses.
I was gonna say like the hardcore ones.
The ones where you're like twisting your body and like hold for 3 minutes.
No. And then there is the yang yoga, which is more influenced by like the sun and masculine energy, which is where you see people doing like handstands and more of an active vinyasa, and vinyasa meaning like active, more flow movement.
Yeah.
So with daily life, since I've done like yoga teacher training and had this learning behind me, has influenced how I live in terms of having a bit more work-life balance.
Yeah.
Because like too much rest is, lazy, where nothing will get done. And having balance is also important, where you have that drive. Otherwise, nothing will happen. So having both, a balance, is important. But I think with burnout, that reflects that there's an imbalance and that rising. And then while that has been rising, burnout, there's also been a big interest in like meditation and how to self-soothe and this knowledge, because people are yearning, how do I bring myself back into balance?
Yeah, and grounding yourself a bit more.
Yes.
So I also wanted to get back into a bit of your journey, going back to when you were, after you finished uni and then you got the chance to go to like Canada and do some work, and obviously you were like growing and doing really well in marketing, advertising. That must have came with like some highs where you're like, this is great, this is awesome. How was the mindset, or like even just the feeling of transition from feeling that high to now like, oh my God, this is too much, I'm so tired, I'm like so worked. Walk us through that journey and like your mindset that changed throughout that whole experience.
Oh, as I started to work more, I just wanted to, get the job done kind of thing. And
so it went from like, yes, I love this to like, okay, let's just get this done.
Like work hard, play hard, living my best life. Until I couldn't get out of bed. This is it. I live for this. And the next day I'm like, oh my God, I don't care. And like I'm so buggered sort of feeling. And then I guess like apathy is one way. And then like that's not like me, because I do care about, and so I guess one way to think about it is like, if you find yourself or friends and family, if you notice a change in their behavior, that can be a sign something's up. So for me it was just recognizing a change in behavior and like feelings as well.
Were you worried that you were kind of like not enjoying your job anymore? Was it like you, or was it like the job when you were at that high where you're like, this is great, and then now you're like, this is not so great? Like, were you like, oh my God, do I need a career change? Do I just not like my job? What were you thinking? I
was like, oh my God, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I don't feel good. So I was a bit confused. I was like, what's up? What if I go running? But I didn't feel like running. What if I change cities? So I did change cities, but that didn't help. When I went to Melbourne, I was still really sad. And like crying all the time, and like I didn't usually cry. But I did see my counselor at the time, and then she said, oh, that's a good thing that you cry, because then it's like a release.
Yeah. When you actually reflect back though, do you think you could have picked up on those cues a lot earlier, just to sort of say, oh shit, I'm actually going towards that burnout period, or I should have listened to my manager at the time who said, hey man, you're burning out. Like, do you think you could have picked up on those signs earlier?
I did have knowledge about it, but I think it's denial. And so maybe I had to go through it to like experience it first.
Yeah.
Because you know how you read stuff and you know something in theory, but sometimes with people there's a bit of a barrier where like, it wouldn't happen to me.
Yeah.
And that was my mentality as well. I'm like, I'm fine. Why would I burn out? I'm in my 20s. I'm healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with like stigma and maybe denial, or definitely denial till like breaking point.
Yeah.
I am human and I'm not bulletproof.
a robot.
Yeah, I do need to rest. Yeah.
Do you mind if we ask like what your managers or manager said to you that were showing signs of burnout?
She just knows that I was working long hours and would be upset easily, and like less happy.
Yeah.
It's
But it's
cool,
good that
yeah.
she actually picked up. It was like,
That's
wow, you're working long
really good.
hours, you know?
Yeah, she was really good and she was great. But the fact that I didn't listen to her tells me at the time that maybe I wasn't ready for that, because I had good access to support in Canada. But yeah, I think it's one of these things, people give you good advice and people don't take it on board until you hit a roadblock yourself, and then you're like, oh, okay. But then now, 10 years later, I do recognize, the signs earlier. I need to reset to avoid that.
Do you mind sharing some of those, like just your personal signs that you would be like, okay, I need to rest?
So when I find myself getting upset a lot, but also tired and like cranky and triggered, and usually I'm pretty chill, like go with the flow sort of thing. But if I find myself really like, why is this happening? I'm like, and so I aim to like manage that. But then, say it escalates. I do feel like I have good support or access where I would make an appointment to a counsellor or my doctor early. So if anything, with sharing my journey on your podcast, it would be for people to be mindful and, be okay with asking for support early rather than leaving it.
Yeah. I think like that's a really good message. And even if you're like, I think if you apply that to just general life, so you're thinking about something, you're unsure, it's like the same concept of just going and ask your friends, like, hey, what do you think about this? And it's just like that same concept, just go and ask about something. Or even if you're not definite, you're not sure, it's like, should I or shouldn't I just talk about it? And then it helps you just brainstorm or even put something out there so that you can take action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love those signs that you've shared, because I feel like they're quite common too. Like even with myself, I would feel that like easily triggered. I'm like you, like very whatever most of the time. But then like if something's like just triggering me, I'm like, why am I so angry? What's wrong with me? Even just driving, I think driving, and when I get triggered, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm tired, I'm frustrated, because like cars, and I'm like, oh my god, why'd you just cut me? Like, why are you driving so slow? Move faster. That's when I'm like, okay,
it's time.
I need to lie on the couch.
Yeah, I think it's important to reflect and talk to people. Sometimes people don't realize just speaking it out loud really helps. Now, I actually personally went through this myself, because for me, the last 14 months, I've been trying to work, because my role was high KPI, high targets. Very much like
the bolded line on the
bolded
job
line,
description.
High intensity, high pace, blah, blah, blah. Anyway,
you
long
need
story
to thrive
short,
in that environment.
You need to thrive that.
Those are the words.
Yeah, that's the words. And yeah, man, like I was doing exactly what you were doing. Weekend work, long hours. And it kind of just got to the point where you just get frustrated and over stupid little things. And I always found myself talking to myself, talking to others, but hey, man, how do you feel? Like, what's your thoughts? And that sort of made me realize like where I'm at, it's not the place for me, and had to sort of look outside of that. So it does get to a point where you're kind of, sometimes you're in denial, because, you've worked so hard to get to wherever you are now, or you've been in the field for so long. Sometimes you just sort of put down the back burner and think, okay, well, I can handle this. We'll just keep pushing along.
Yeah.
But you don't realize that it is really screwing you up mentally.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like sometimes it's quite a cultural upbringing thing too. Like maybe the upbringing that you've grown in, you just learned that you have to push through things. You got to keep, I don't know if it's the same for you, but like for me, it's just you got to keep pushing through. You can't give up. And then like if you give up, it's like, oh my God, everyone's going to talk about you, or like you didn't finish this and that. So you're like, no, I can push through. It's fine. Like I can keep doing it. And you apply that to like everything. And even like in career, when you may not be in the right place or in a place that you're happy with, but you feel like you need to push through. But once you take that step back, you think about it, like, why am I even working so hard in something that I don't really enjoy, then you kind of start to realize. So I feel like sometimes that could be a play in terms of the denial or like not being ready to move on or move away.
Yeah, sometimes you just think like, is this really worth it? Is all this money, all this hours that you're working, is it really truly worth?
You know, my granddad was with his job for decades. I think 3 decades or 4, I don't know. But he had the, same job and mentality was, work hard and stay and be grateful for a job and which I think transferred to my parents. They both have a really strong work ethic as well. Yeah, I definitely think that plays into it. But when I was chatting with them about it, my parents were very supportive and they're like, maybe this is the career for you.
That's good.
Think about retraining and
That's so good, yeah.
Yeah, that's good that they understand.
Yeah. So do you think it has to do with culture? But having that approach where you step back and ask, is this worth it? And if you're not,
get the fuck
out. Yeah. While we're on that about if we should skedaddle or not, what helped you make the decision whether or not you should just step away from that career or like make a change? Like what helped you kind of make that next move?
Yeah, so I was still in advertising for a little while, but then I found another agency and the culture was terrible and then found myself in the same predicament. I'm like, this is some kind of pattern. What is happening? Yeah. And so after that, I was let go after a very short time, like 6 weeks from the job.
Wow.
And the agency was quite demanding as well. Combined with like a toxic environment, my unhealthy mental state at the time wasn't a good mix anyway.
Yeah.
Blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I'm like, cool, whatever. Yeah. And I felt so light when I finished. Like I was upset that the job ended and, stressed about money, but it was better that I went down another path. So I left advertising for a couple of years and I actually went into debt collection.
Oh, shit.
I was really desperate at the time. I was like, I hate advertising. I'm done.
So I'll just go collect some debt.
I'll go collect some, which doesn't make sense because then I was chatting with people who were really angry and swearing. But in saying that, with that role in customer service, it was very much you start at this time, you finish at this time. This is your script. So I didn't have to work on like creative solutions, which is what you do in advertising, digital marketing. And so I do love the creative part of advertising and marketing, but I think my brain just needed to rest and someone tell me what to do. So I did do that for 2 years. And that's when I was working and talking all day. And then I wasn't able to string words together at the end of the day. And so I did that. And then when I was working in customer service and debt collection, I really focused on seeing my counsellor at the time and just getting my mental health right, basically. So I moved into the Valley, which was close to work, and I committed to I knew I needed to do something to move because when my counsellor said, you need to do something physically. And I didn't feel like going out to social events, but my counsellor was like, no, you need to commit and put yourself out there and make sure to see friends every week, even if you don't feel like it, even if you're feeling lazy. And so I felt really lazy and didn't want to do anything, but I also thought I didn't want to stay in this shitty headspace and needed to rewire my depressed and sad brain because I was pretty buggered from work. Melting pot of mess. But the counsellor's great, gave some really practical tools. So, I always share with people it's okay to ask for support. There are practical steps that you can take. Sometimes people need medication, sometimes they don't. But your lifestyle can play into your burnout or keeping yourself healthy and well. So I just focused on gym and yoga and going on walks by the river for a couple of years.
That would have been nice.
Yeah, it's quite nice. It was
Boardwalk,
a great life.
Yeah, boardwalk is nice.
Yeah. So that was my focus for 2 years. I just got to get my head straight. And then eventually I started feeling better and then went back into marketing. And then in the past few years I've moved into non-profit space and working for non-profits that support mental health and aged care disability, which feels like a good fit as well.
Yeah, it suits what you've learned too.
Yeah. So it's been a shift. Yeah. I haven't gone back into advertising. I don't know if I will. I may not. More than likely not.
PTSD.
Yeah. Like, and I try to be a nice client when I talk to advertising agencies.
Yeah,
now.
because you understand the other side.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's pretty funny because now that you've been on that side,
Yeah.
and you're their client, now you're like, yeah, I'm going to just, I feel how you feel, whatever, do whatever you need to do. Whereas there's some other clients, she tells me all the time, like they're real particular, real pedantic. Oh, I want it like this, this. So I feel,
No, it's
feel
more
fun.
like the tight turnarounds. Like, you can just do this. It's like, no, you can't. You can't just do it. Just like press a button and just get it done, Like, I need this today.
There is a creative process and time and thinking that needs to go into this.
Exactly. But like from all this journey, from start to now, what's the biggest mindset shift that you feel like you've learned or have changed about work or even like mental health and self-care?
It would be that your health is priceless. You can't really put a value on it. And to invest in it. And money will come.
What did you define self-care back then? Like, was it just taking yourself out or something?
I didn't really think about self-care.
Like, not at all?
Yeah, not really.
Because you were a hustler back then,
I'm
eh?
a hustler. Hustle, baby.
Yeah.
I was like, no, work hard. Play hard. Yeah, which is so funny because now I'm going to like yoga retreats and just like chilling.
The tranquil.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't do this.
No more rave parties.
Focusing more on mental health has shifted my career in that I'm able to like think more clearly on solutions and better outcomes, a bit more like level-headed with work. And my pay has gone up, so I think if you can take care of your mind and your well-being and how you are, then that has an impact rather than going on approaching it the other way where it's like hustle,
grinding.
And no results. Some results, but not as fruitful as you could be. Yeah.
No, that's really good. And like also enjoying what you're doing too. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, making time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Would you say the investment for yourself now is more about like one, self-reflecting or doing the things that you really enjoy, but also investing the time in, was it seeing someone professional in terms of having those conversations? Is that sort of what you would define as an investment to yourself now?
Oh, now I definitely see lots of value in seeing a trained person, like a counselor, beyond like friends and family. Friends and family are important for moral support, but they don't necessarily have the training to support you, like the tools to guide you. And then also, so there's that part, being okay with getting support with a trained professional, and then also investing time in like going to the gym or meditation or spending time with friends and family, or people will approach self-care differently. Sometimes it's like church or prayer or journaling. Everyone's different, but you need to carve time out to do that. When I was not feeling well, I didn't do any of that. Yeah, whereas I do now. And I think it has to do with like grounding yourself.
And putting yourself first as well.
Yeah. What do you like to do to ground yourself?
Well, I mean, for me, in the last 14 months, I've kind of neglected myself.
Yeah, he's kind of like, he was in your state when
I was in your state pretty much. Yeah,
you're like, this sounds familiar.
How'd you know so much about my life?
It's pretty crazy how it all sort of relates in some regard. But I know for the last 14 months, I'm a kind of guy that likes to invest myself in the fact of I like to gym. We do Muay Thai. I like to hang out with my mates and do things like that. But the last 40 months, I've neglected a lot of all those things.
Yep.
So I've really dropped the ball in terms of my health and physical aspect as well. So, I mean, I realized that once I've dropped that, it really had an effect to me mentally.
Yep.
So just, I guess, realizing that, well, one, she was obviously, hey, you're not doing this, I can see that you're being affected. And that made me realize, oh shit, I'm dropping the ball when it comes to that. But also reflecting with others and my peers and just having people sort of just say, hey man, you've got to pull yourself back because it's really screwing you up. That's what made me realize, oh shit, I either need to change the lifestyle that I'm living in now in terms of work, or I'm just going to continuously dig myself in a hole. That's why I envy the people who are used to, living that high intense lifestyle or work wise where they can just do it day in, day out. I just don't know how they do it.
Yeah. There's some like extroverted people who just have a lot of energy and they just thrive with it. But if they know that they can, they're fine with it. Keep doing it. But yeah, there's like some people like us where sometimes you just need a breather.
Yep.
But yeah, like in terms of like what I would do to ground myself, I'm a person that I just need my own time and I just need to just, even if it's like 5 minutes, I wouldn't say I need a lot of time to myself, but if I can just sit there, I think usually mornings, like wake up, have like a slow morning before I start work, I find myself just having that breather, like that breathing room. Whereas like if I have less of that time where I'm like, okay, I'm so tired, I woke up late, I'm rushing to go to work and then everything's just like rolled over and you're like, oh my God, now I'm just like running. Like if I don't have that, then I'm like, okay, I'm just so tired. Like everything's back to back. And then I just, I find I would try to, even if I will be tired, I will try and just wake up just a little bit earlier. So I can just sit there, have my breakfast, have a drink and just like chill. Like I don't even have TV or anything on. I just sit there, enjoy the presence of just being able to have breakfast, which sounds kind of weird, but that's just the most basic way.
You enjoy breakfast. Toast is great.
Yeah, like the most basic way of me just enjoying my time. That's like the most basic thing. And I think it comes back to just some of the non-negotiables, which is something that we've talked about quite a few times on the podcast, and just remembering even like just the top 3 non-negotiables and don't forget about that. And I think for like Sam, how he started to lose a bit of his like self-care, and it's because of that, because gym and working out is one of his non-negotiables, and he stopped that, and that's when he started to not sleep properly or feel really tired or burnt out. And it's just remembering that, hey, this was your non-negotiable, but you're not doing it anymore. And it's not because he chose not to go, he's just kind of like brushing it, be like, it's okay, I don't need to go, but it's like, this was your non-negotiable, so you should probably make time for it to go, so
yeah, I think it's a bit dangerous when you get into that phase where you kind of neglect all those things that you hold yourself true.
Yeah.
That's when it just goes down that spiral negatively. But to flip the question back to you, how did you find the calm in your storm, Roxy?
I did do some other things like volunteering. So volunteering was great because that also got me out of my
headspace.
Yeah. Just being super sad. And then also, the how you feel when you help people as well.
Yeah.
That satisfaction.
Good for your brain. Like releases
endorphins.
Good chemicals. Yeah. So that was nice. Yeah. And I think, collectively over time, then things shifted. And then I wanted to do more volunteering and like awareness about depression and anxiety. And then that's when I started volunteering with this organization where I go to places, to corporates actually, to talk about mental health and encourage people to take your break, lunch break, because so many people eat lunch at their desk.
Yeah, like be more mindful.
Yeah. And then I remember ticking on the information box that I did want to focus on corporate mental health because of my experience in corporate.
That's good. You're giving back.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. That was it eating lunch while working?
Yeah.
That's a huge thing, hey? Because like when I was working in this big institution, they basically encouraged to eat while working.
Horrible.
That's why I was like, what? Don't you need time to break and, chill? But no, it's like, no, just
what
work.
Is break?
Just eat your lunch while you're, doing your work. It's all good. And like,
then if your values aren't on par with that, then there's a disconnect there.
Hard to keep powering through when the values don't align.
Yeah, like I feel resentful.
Yeah, but
you're like, I feel resentful. Like, I just want to take 30 minutes for my lunch.
Yeah.
And plus, you're entitled to a full hour when you're working full time. So,
well, apparently no, mate. You got to keep on working.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
But was yoga also one of these things help you find that calm in the storm as well? Because you've done that for so long. Was that one of the tools that you used to help ground you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yoga, it resets your brain, like the pathways, yoga and meditation. But I remember in advertising when I was working at an agency, in Canada, I went to the yoga studio down the road, and I'd feel resentful if I was working and I missed the class. I'd be like, I just want to go to yoga, because things the volume.
Yeah.
But when I did go, I remember the 5 minutes of like breathing exercises that you do at the beginning and end of class. I felt really calm and like I could actually breathe, because when you're stressed, you have a shallow breath where you breathe into your throat basically. But then when we were doing the breathing exercise, it's like, oh shit, I can breathe,
into your diaphragm.
Yeah, like my body just felt better and calm. In Shavasana, which is like the end of the yoga class, where you do your breathing exercises and you lay back for like 5-10 minutes and you pause basically. And it's like you're sleeping, but you're not. It's more like conscious rest.
Is that where like some people might fall asleep? Because I have fallen asleep before.
People snoring and stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
It's just so relaxing that you're just like, oh my God.
And I used to really love the breathing exercises, and also I would fall asleep and like start snoring within that small time. I was like, holy heck, I need.
Yeah, I've done that before too.
I was burnt out.
Yeah.
But practicing yoga maybe 3 times a week, and then I just found I like slept better and a bit calmer.
So how has yoga as well helped you have a better relationship with yourself?
More self-awareness. The yoga teachers, they used to say random things like, notice how you're breathing, see how you feel, and like ask questions for self-inquiry, which I hadn't done. So I found that really great. And like, how do you feel today? I'm like, I'm tired. Oh, I have some rest. And so, yeah, it was really great for that.
Yoga's great.
Yeah, we need to try it. Well, actually, I need to do it, but I think I'm struggled with that.
I sometimes do. I put on those YouTube videos and then get him to do it. And it's like, I'm not made to bend like a table. Do like the downward dog and stuff, and it's like stiff and everything. It's so funny.
I'm too stiff and shit. I can't get into those poses.
Keep going, Sam.
I know. Like I try to. I'm like, far out.
But he used to break dance, and
I used to break dance.
Some of the poses are quite similar to yoga poses. So I'm like, if you can break dance, you can yoga.
That was many years ago when I was more flexible, but now I'm just no deal. We're coming closer to the end of our episode, but just to wrap up, what's your 3 advice to provide to someone who can help overcome stress
or manage
stress?
Yeah, managing stress. I'd encourage people to practice self-awareness. First of all, to notice, what they do like or what helps to bring them calm, and to do more of that, whatever that is, whether that's gym or yoga, and also being okay with having these conversations, asking for support, and prioritizing your health and well-being and making time for it.
So important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is possible to, like, there's lots of support available so that you can remain supported in whatever it is that you're doing.
I like that. And I like just throughout the whole conversation how you said, like, there has been a stigma, but it shouldn't need to be like that stigma about it. Like, it's okay to talk and it's okay to feel the way that you're feeling. So I really like that.
Yeah. I think there's a bit of, shame sometimes with not feeling well. And so I guess getting past that.
I think ultimately it's just try to not get yourself to that zone where you're like, yeah, okay, I've dug myself a pretty big hole. I think that's ultimately what you got to avoid to avoid burnout, really.
Yeah, and catch yourself before you get to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been great having you. But before we leave, did you want to share anything about where people can find you or even get some yoga sessions with you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm on Instagram, Roxy Aila Yoga, Instagram, Facebook, and I teach in Brisbane at Snap Fitness Sherwood.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And Anchor on the north side of Brisbane, Anchor Training.
Okay,
nice.
cool.
Yeah, we'll pop the links in the description.
Yeah. If anyone wants some yoga sessions with Roxy, highly recommend to check it out. But yeah, it's been really good having this chat with you, and we both have resonated with the experiences that you've gone through, and I'm sure many other listeners have as well, and really appreciate you sharing.
Oh, thanks a million, Sam, for having me and inviting me. Really grateful for the opportunity. Yeah, and love your message that you're sharing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, once again, thanks guys for joining us, and we will see you in the next one.
Goodbye.
Peace.